إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين فلا تطع المكذبين ودوا لو تدهن فيدهنون ولا تطع كل حلاف مهين هماز مشاء بنميم مناع للخير معتد أثيم عتل بعد ذلك زنيم أن كان ذا مال وبنين إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين سنسمه على الخرطوم إنا بلوناهم كما بلونا أصحاب الجنة إذ أقسموا ليصرمنها مصبحين ولا يستثنون فطاف عليهم طائف من ربك وهم نائمون فأصبحت كالصريم فتنادوا مصبحين أن اغدوا على حرثكم إن كنتم صارمين فانطلقوا وهم يتخافتون ألا يدخلنها اليوم عليكم مسكين وغدوا على حرد قادرين فلما رأوها قالوا إنا لضالون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات Inshallah, Brother Manakia is gonna, the brothers Manakia are gonna recite some poetry, and then we'll, inshallah, start with the program.
Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat. Bar Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat.
था वही आलम गुरबत में रज़ा का आलम था वही आलम गुरबत में रज़ा का आलम کربلا میں جو شہ کرب و بلا کا آلہ، وہی تسلیم وہی صبر و رضا کا آلہ، وہی تسبیح وہی ذکر خدا کا آلہ، نقش توحید کو اس طرح مٹایا جائے، زہر اور ساقی کوثر کو پلایا جائے، گو بہت دور وطن سے تھے حسین ابن علی، تھا نہ غم خوار بھی ان کا دم آخر کوئی، رونے والے تو مگر ان کے تھے موجود کئی، سر کھلے ہی سہی مقتل میں بہن تھی تو سہی، تھا یقین غم میرے، تھا یقین غم میں میرے جان کو کھوئے گی بہن، فاطمہ لاش پہ اور ناک پہ روئے گی بہن، کشتہ زہر زمانے میں حسن بھی تھے مگر، نزع میں زانو شبیر پہ ان کا سر، بہن تسکین کو موجود تسلی کو پسر، اپنے سب اہل وطن اپنے عزیز اپنا گھر، یا وطن دور بہن ہے نہ کوئی بھائی ہے، نزع کا وقت ہے اور عالم تنہائی ہے، ان خیالات غم انگیز میں پہ ہم جو گرے، اشک آنکھوں سے بہے ریش مبارک پہ گرے، کوفہ و شام کے بازار نگاہوں میں پھرے، موت نے تھام لیے تارے رگے جاں کے سرے، چل بسے گلشن ہستی سے ہمارے مولا، شے کو روتے ہوئے دنیا سے سدھارے مولا، چل بسے گلشن ہستی سے ہمارے مولا، شے کو روتے ہوئے دنیا سے سدھارے مولا، تھا وہی عالم غربت میں رضا کا آلہ، نعرہ صلوات۔
Please recite another salawat for the brothers, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa abdil faraj. Please, with 3 salawat, welcome the Sheikh to the podium, inshallah.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. به نستعين. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فدا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقيه، فأما من أوتي كتابه بيمينه فسوف يحاسب حسابا يسيرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Assalamu alaikum, Jameel Mu'min Mu'minat. First and foremost, I give my condolences to you on the occasion which we are coming to commemorate, and that is one of the occasions, or at least as mentioned, as the Shahadat of Imam Ali ibn Muhibullah alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. I asked for a Surah Fatiha, as one of our dear brothers, actually yesterday was the 40th of the passing of his mother, Marahuma Marazia Kafshin, who comes from a family, again that name Kafshin, her family were Khuddam in the Haram of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. For a long time they would be those individuals who would collect their shoes. So inshallah, let's recite a Surah Fatiha for this marhuma. Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As I mentioned that we are commemorating the Shahada, at least one of the riwayat of the Shahada. Of course, when we look at the life of Imam Ali ibn Muhibullah alayhi salatu wasalam, one of the strongest narrations about his Shahada is on the 17th of Safar. According to some of the muhaqqiqeen, some of the researchers, they say that the 23rd of Dhul Qa'dah, it's not necessarily his Shahada, although scholars like Sayyid ibn Tawus, one of our great scholars, there's some indication there where he mentioned this. But others, they say that this is the day in which Imam Ali ibn Muhibullah alayhi salatu wasalam, that he left from Medina going towards Khurasan. Even if we take it in that perspective, we can say that this is the muqaddimah, this is the steps towards the Shahadat of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. Something that Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, he also pointed out to one of his companions. Inshallah, we'll mention that narration. It's a beautiful encounter that Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, he has with one of his followers, where he talks about this, you can say, these steps towards one's death, which is something that's inedible. As the Ahlul Bayt alayhi they always tell us to remember death, that when we remember death, we prepare ourselves better for that moment. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This sound is a lot. So we prepare ourselves better when we remember death, we remember our mortality. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he states beautifully in the Quran, Ya ayyuhal insan, innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqi. That, O mankind, that you are in motion. Kadihan means that you are, that everything that you do, that you're in motion towards what? Towards meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that meeting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about our death. Of course, just for one example that, mashallah, alhamdulillah, many of you have come tonight to listen to this majlis for Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam. And of course, in the immediate part of your mind is, oh yes, I'm leaving home to go to the masjid, to go and to, listen to the majlis, to go and to make salat in jama'ah. But if we truly take into mind what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, إِنَّكَ كَادِحٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ كَدْحًا فَمُلَاقِيهِ. Kadih means to do something, to toil. This is why some of the translations, they say that you're laboring, you're doing something. So everything that we do is a step closer to our death, a step closer to meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our at least immediate objective is like, oh, we're going to go to the masjid. But in reality, leaving our homes, coming here, or even leaving to go back, we are one step closer to meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to prepare for that. And Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam, subhanAllah, seems as from the first day when we begin to celebrate the birth of Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam, we encountered one of the teachings of Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam to his companion, Fadl ibn Shahadat. So as I said, it's a hadith, single hadith, which in the Ayun al-Akhbar al-Ridha is 18 pages long. In other words, he's having a thorough discussion with Fadl ibn Shahadat, and we'll go back to this as well to see what Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam, he teaches us about death. Very beautiful in at least the Salatul Mayyit. But before I do that, I just want to touch on a aspect of death, or at least the tragedy that is before us. Again, many of the activists, many, whether they are Muslim, even non-Muslims, they are speaking about this, that this is the moment, or this is the crisis and the greatest issue of our time. And that is what's happening in Gaza. That the senseless killing of children, the starvation of children, women and children, that this is something that we must not stay silent upon. Even if we simply pass on the information, if we're not out in the streets protesting, at the very least pass on the information, the correct information, that what exactly is happening. As we mentioned in the Salatul Jum'ah, one of the well-known reporters, Chris Hedges, he said this tactic of starving individuals to death during warfare, he says it's one of the most barbaric forms of warfare. It's not the sign of civilization. Matt Gabon also, he's saying that, he says that, look, if we look at what's happening, that humanity is moving in a trajectory that is backwards, not towards civilization. With regards to that, there's one very beautiful point that Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam, that he makes regarding this, at least this idea of children dying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, he addresses it in the Quran, that in pre-Islamic Arabia, that those young babies that were being buried, that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will come forth and they will ask, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ, that for what sin were they killed? And those who were perpetrating that act, they will be held accountable for that. One individual, and again, as we know, that Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam, who's also considered to be alim, or alim, Ali Muhammad. He is the teacher, he is the scholar among Ali Muhammad. One, because he had a great deal of debates with individuals from all over the world. In one session, Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam, he was sitting with someone who had been examining, apparently this individual was someone who perhaps wasn't clear about religion in general, but he was examining the various faiths. And so he had a question. He says, he asks other religions of this question. He says that I didn't really find a satisfying answer. So he asks Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi hafizatu salam. He says, and that was about the flood during the time of Noah. And again, the Prophet Noah, alayhi nabiyina wa alayhi salam, that this is someone that all of the Ahl Kitab, meaning Christians, Jews, Muslims, that we all accept this prophet, that he is a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what happened during that time? Because of the disobedience of people, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he flooded the earth, and then there was a renewal after this moment. So this individual, his question was that, well, what kind of God is this? What type of creator is this? That when he floods the earth, that he kills children. Al-Atfal, that children are even dying. So Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah, he responded to this. He says that no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when his punishment comes, and again, this is one of the biggest proofs for us, especially those who are people of the book, that what is our responsibility to humanity, especially when it comes to young children who are innocent. Okay, if grown people, they're creating these wars, and I say, but what are these children? What have they done? So Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah, he says that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment has come down upon a people, he says that there are no children among them. So how can any religion say that, oh, well, we're ordered to kill everyone and even the children? Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah says, no, he says that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment came down on the people of Noah, he said for 40 years he made the women barren. That for 40 years no one gave birth. He says, so those individuals who were drowned in that flood, who had met the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there were no children. There were no children. When this individual heard this, he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. MashaAllah, this is the hikmah and the wisdom that we learn from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wasalam. That if we truly are individuals who follow the men of God, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who delivered the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who try to live our life in the light and through the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has that much mercy that no, these children who are innocent, who are not individuals who are saying that, oh, hey, the Prophet is giving us this message and we reject it. No, they're children. They may not have that rationale to know to accept or not to accept. But individuals who are adults, who belied, who rejected the revelation during the time of Noah, those individuals were punished. But no children were punished. Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi hafizatullah, as we said, that this moment, or the 23rd of Al-Qa'dah, which was roughly about on Wednesday, that when he took that journey towards Khurasan at the summoning of Ma'mun, and one of the things that he had, or at least that encounter that he had with Ma'mun, is that he wrote to Imam Ridha in one moment, he said, give me advice, idni. So Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah, he wrote this advice to him, very beautiful advice. He says, إِنَّكَ فِي الدُّنْيَا لَهَا مُدَّةٌ يُقْبَلُ فِيهَا عَمَلٌ عَامِلٌ أَمَا تَرَى الْمَوْتِ مُحِيطًا بِهَا. He says that, this is the first part, he says that, realize that you're living in this world. And this world and your life in this world is limited by a time. Again, we don't know what that time is. It could be 20 years, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 100 years. But one of the things that we know for sure, for reality, that we're not going to live forever. And when we come to that reality, what does Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah, he says, do you not see that this life and this world, it is surrounded by death? Muhitan biha. He says, if you come to that realization, he says, what happens? He says, yuslabu minha amalul amini. He says, then anyone, if you come to that reality, again, you won't have long hopes that, oh, I want to do this or achieve this. This doesn't mean that we don't strive to be the best. But our hopes and our expectations are within that context that, yes, I'm going to achieve, but what do I achieve? As Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah, he points to, he says, it cuts short the hopes, and this is a negative hope that Imam Ridha alayhi hafizatullah is talking about, that if I long for something, I hope for something, and I'm going to do any and everything to get to that desire that I have, this is what Imam Ridha alayhi hafizah he's saying. He said, it will cut that short. He says, why? He says, تُعَجِّلُ الذَّنْبِ بِمَا تَشْتِهِ وَتَأْمُلُ التَّوْبَةِ مِنْ قَابِلٍ وَالْمَوْتُ تَأْتِي أَهْلُهُ بَغْدَةً مَا ذَلِكَ فِعْلُ الْحَازِمِ الْعَاقِلِ. He says that what happens, he says, and he's talking to Ma'mun. He says that what happens, that you hasten towards the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because you feel that, oh, well, if I do this thing, I know it's not right, but if I do it and I achieve what I want to achieve, whatever it may be, the wealth, power, whatever it may be, I know that this action is not right, but I do it so I can achieve that. And you know what? I'll make tawbah later. So Imam Ridha alayhi wasalam, he states that if your hopes are that maybe this one little white lie, maybe this one disobedience, and I'll make tawbah later. He says that in reality, you're doing this and you're taking a chance. He says, why? Because death comes baghtatan, when you least expect it. It comes, you don't know. You may be in the middle of that and say, oh, I'll make tawbah later, but you have no chance to make that tawbah, to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he says, this is not the action of a person who is wise and prudent. That person who's wise, then he doesn't have that hope where he's longing to achieve something through the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That at every cost, at every means, I must do this, or I must get this, even if I have to cheat, if I have to steal. No, this is not the action of a wise person. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So inshallah, that hopefully we also heed this advice of Imam Ali bin Musa Ridha alayhi hafizah and be those individuals who are wise, who walk in the footsteps of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Going to the Ayun al-Akhbar al-Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, as we mentioned, there's a compilation of the riwayat of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. In that conversation that he has with Fadl ibn Shadhan, again, he addresses a very beautiful point about, again, not only about our belief, about our aqidah, but about death. And he gives the most beautiful point, one of those, I would say, beliefs, or at least things that we believe in, that sometimes it comes under question. Of course, it comes under question sometimes from those who don't follow our school of thought. But even I've seen some from among ourselves who begin to question that, well, how is this possible? And what is this thing like? And that is shafa, the intercession. Imam Ridha alayhi hafizah, he tells Fadl ibn Shadhan in that discussion, as I mentioned, that there was this question that, what if someone says this? And Imam Ridha alayhi hafizah, he responds by saying that لِعِلِلٍ شَتَّى, that there are many different reasons. And he gives some of those reasons, of course, so that one, we equip ourselves with this understanding, but more importantly, we understand how to think and how to reflect and to dig deeper into our own beliefs, to dig deeper in the understanding of the Quran and our actions, that why we do certain things. Not to just, oh, well, we make the salat because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it wajib. Yes, absolutely. Obedience. But to connect deeper to that salat, understand the reasoning behind that. The reasoning behind every single thing. Much like when Imam Ali alayhi hafizah, when he sat down with Ibn Abbas. It was very, very beautiful. And this is just an example how the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afusatu, they teach us. So he sat with Ibn Abbas to give him tafsir. And so he says to Ibn Abbas, he says that, he says that, can you give me, what is the meaning of the ba of Bismillah? So Ibn Abbas, he was like, oh, like this is a harf, it it's just a letter. So Imam Ali alayhi salatu he begins to give tafsir of the ba of Bismillah. That what does the ba mean? Then he goes to the sin. That what does the sin mean of Bismillah? Then he goes to the meme. What does the meme of Bismillah mean? Then he goes to the alif of Allah. Bismillah. The alif in Allah. So, and he said, and this was after Maghrib, he sat with Ibn Abbas. And when he got to the alif, it was time for Fajr. And he told Ibn Abbas, he says, I will continue, he says, just on this alif. He says, and if I wrote what the alif means, he says, you will need 70 camels to take all of what I write. Just on the alif of Bismillah. This is the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Unfortunately, again, we quite often just simply scratch the surface. So Imam al-Ridha alayhi salatu he is in discussion with Fadl ibn Sha'ban, and this question, he says that if this question comes up, لَمَا أُمِرُوا بِالصَّلَاةِ عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ, that why have we been ordered to make the salat on the mayyit, the person who's deceased? So qeel, and Imam Ridha, he says, then it should be said, it should be answered. The response should be this: لِيَشْفَعُوا لَهُ وَيَدْعُوا لَهُ بِالْمَغْفِرَةِ. Subhanallah. That the salat upon the mayyit, this is the first level of what? Of shafa'ah. Of shafa'ah. If anyone doubts in, is this idea and this concept of shafa'ah, that one person intercedes on behalf of the other, so no, only Allah does this. Yeah, there's some places in the Quran where it says that, yes, only Allah gives the shafa'ah. There are places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he points out that no, others also can give shafa'ah. One of those places, as Imam Ridha alayhi salatu he's pointing out, is what? Through the salatul mayyit. And then he says, لأنه لم يكن في وقت من الأوقات أحوج إلى الشفاعة فيه والطلب والاستغفار من تلك الساعة. He says, why? Because that person who has passed away, he says, this is the point where this leaves no doubt that shafa'ah is possible between an individual and others. One of the things that this also points out, and simply I want to mention this because just last week as well, I got into a discussion with one of the mu'mineen, other people to recite the Quran for the marhum. Says, but they don't believe that the Quran is beneficial for a person who has passed away. But subhanallah. Again, this is when we look at that salatul mayyit. Within our school of thought, we make dua. 5 takbirs, and after each takbir, there's a specific dua that we make. Within the school of Ahlul Sunnah, what happens after the first takbir? They recite al-Fatiha. Al-Fatiha, and then according to, again, what is written in their books of fiqh, they say you recite al-Fatiha for sure, and then you can recite a second surah. If that Fatiha and second surah, meaning reciting the Quran, was not beneficial for the mayyit, then why do you do it in Salatul Mayyit? Why is it done in Salatul Mayyit? Again, this is the rationale that was given. I was going back and forth. I said, this doesn't make sense. Why? The Prophet, he recited the Fatiha. But here also we see that you recite the Fatiha and you recite a second surah over this mayyit. The salat is done by whom? By those who are living. Why? Because the mayyit can make the salat. And while there is, yes, a reward or a thawab for those individuals who are doing this action, it's wajib al-kifaya as well, there's an obligation to do this, but who does the reward of that salat of mayyit go to? It doesn't go to the people who are alive. This is why it's called salatul mayyit, the prayer for the mayyit, the person who's deceased, who can no longer make salat. And you're making that salat upon their behalf for their shafa'ah. They can't ask salat that, oh Allah, that, maybe I died in this way, Allah forgive me. No, the people who are alive are making that request from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for istighfar, and they are making dua for this deceased individual. This discussion continues one more point about the Salatul Mayyit, which is also a very beautiful point. That sometimes we may have questions about this, it may arise, and of course I know that the question has come to me before as well, that he tells Fadl ibn Sha'dan, or Fadl ibn Sha'dan, he says, وَلِمَا جُعِلَتْ خَمْسَةُ تَكْبِيرَاتٍ دُونَ أَن يُكَبِّرُوا أَرْبَعًا أَوْ سِتًّا. So why is there 5 takbirs? And we make 5 takbirs. Of course, those who don't follow the Ahlul Bayt, they make 4 takbirs. So he says that why are there 5, not 4, nor are there 6? Why simply 5? So Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that there are 5. إِنَّمَا أُخِذَتْ مِنْ خَمْسِ الصَّلَوَاتِ فِي يَوْمِ وَاللَّيْلِ. He says why? He says because in the day when this person was alive, that's how many times did they make takbiratul ihram? 5 times. For Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Now this 5 times of takbir has now been cut from this person. So this is the last moment in which this individual gets the barakah and the blessings of what? 5 takbirat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, one of the reasons for this takbir, as He says in Surah Baqarah, لِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ, that you make takbir of Allah. You make these takbirat to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He has guided you towards. And this is that last moment of thanksgiving and shukr, that yes, as a person who's alive, that Ya Allah, that we are given these takbirat, not only as a part of the Salatul Mayyit, not only to ask istighfar, not only to give shafa'ah for this individual, that also that this gratitude, that the reward of thanking you, Ya Allah, that it goes to this person. And of course, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also tells us that if you are grateful, that in shakartum, la'zidannakum. So Ya Allah, that whatever this thanksgiving to you, by giving this takbir, whatever it is worth, give it to this person who is deceased, who is before us. SubhanAllah, this is the wisdom of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. This is what in the Ahlul Bayt, as I said, they want us to learn and to understand. That perhaps as our journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our every step, our every moment, our every breath, as it goes, that insha'Allah, that the end of that journey, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, that for those individuals who receive their book, biyamini. فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسِبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا, that our hisab, our account, will be an easy account. Or not only that, that our steps towards that inevitable meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be something that is easy, something that, again, it makes our journey at ease. One of those accounts that, again, this is a story that Agha Ramadani, he mentioned to me yesterday, about his mother. I mentioned how his mother, subhanAllah, that how her death was. A very beautiful point, that how her mother was waiting for her. And this was something that Ramadani's cousins, 2 different cousins in Iran, that didn't know that she was in the hospital, said, oh, we had a dream last night that our grandmother, she was saying that she's waiting for a visitor. And who is that visitor? It was Marziya Kafsheen. Her father, who again, he was a khadim of the haram of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, that during the time of Reza Shah, he said at one moment the Shah, he was coming to the haram. And so he ordered the Khudam, he says that on this day that I come, and this is supposed to be what a respect to him, that bring your wives and make sure that they are not covered, that their hijabs are not covered. And so she was a little girl. So her father, again, very religious person, he was like, how can I bear this? That how do I get out of it? What do I do? What do I do? So He said that, and again, she heard the story from her mother as well. He said her father just prayed to her, Ya Allah, he says, this is something I don't have taqah. I can't bear this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he went, La yukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha. Only what it can bear. Only what it can bear. He says, Ya Allah, that how can I come and I bring my wife to without her hijab in this sacred space of Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam for this person who's, again, as I said, tyrant, is Tawhut. He said that the next day when the Shah was supposed to come, that night, the father passed away. The father passed away. That death is inevitable, and we have to prepare for that. One account during the lifetime of Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, as we mentioned, these steps towards death are steps towards returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said that one of the followers, one of the companions of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam fell ill. And Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam went to visit. And so as he visited this companion, he says, Kayfa najuduka? That, how are you? How are you feeling? What state are you in? So he responded, he says, I've met death. So after I met death. So Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam asked him, he says, Kayfa laqita? How did you meet death? And what this individual was talking about, he was like, the pain of his illness. So he responded to Imam Ridha, he says, Shadidan alima, that it's very difficult. The state that I'm in, this pain that I'm feeling, he says, very difficult. And so Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he told him, he says, no, he says, ma laqaytahu innama laqayta ma yabda'uka bi. He says, you've only encountered the beginning of death, that beginning process, which was his illness, which was the discomfort that he was feeling. Then he tells this individual, he says, and this is only so that you would know what death is. وَيُعَرِّفُكَ بَعْضَ حَالِهِ. He says, and that pain, that discomfort is only an introduction. That death is telling you that what is part of that death. So then Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, again, he gives them comfort, but this is comfort for ourselves too, that what is that moment of death like? Even if there's some discomfort or some pain. So Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he tells us, he says, إِنَّمَا النَّاسِ رَجُولَانِ مُسْتَرِيحٌ بِالْمَوْتِ وَمُسْتَرَاحٌ مِنْهُ بِهِ. He says that people are of two categories. He says some individuals, that their death is ease. For them, they realize that death is ease. مُسْتَرِيحٌ بِالْمَوْتِ. And some individuals, he says, that for them, death is an ease from the process of death. So for some people, that death is easy. That it comes. For some, it's like, some people, it's like they fall asleep, they never wake up. Some, they may feel that discomfort of death and they're just waiting that, let it come. Why? So I can be alleviated from the pain of death. Then Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he gives him, again, a formula, something that we can use ourselves, that if we are in that state of death, if we may be in that discomfort, or even if we're not in that discomfort, that this will help us to make that journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remember that truly, what is this death? What is the reality of this death? Ya ayyuhal insan innaka kaduhun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqi. That if one views this process as that we're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, we're going to become closer to him. So Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he says, فَجَدَّدَ الْإِيمَانِ بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْوَلَايَةِ تَكُنْ مُسْتَرِيحًا. He says, in that moment, he says, renew your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in that guardianship of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. In other words, in that moment, recite the Shahadatain. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Remember that, yes, this is a moment I'm going back to Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That inshallah we are among the followers of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, the Ahlul Bayt. Ashhadu anna Aliyyun waliyullah. This is again the hikmah of the talqeen, at least in that moment of death before burial. But also dua adila. If you read dua adila, that you recite this for a person who is close to death. In that dua, it is quite similar to what? The talqeen. So they hear that before they even pass away. Where it renews their faith, their iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, renews their faith in their iman in Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. And if we do that as Imam Ridha alayhi afdal salatu wasalam, he says, Takun mustarihan, that you'll be at ease. You'll be at ease. So the individual who was there, Muhammad ibn Ali, he said that this individual, he listened to Imam Ridha, and that's what he did. He began to recite the Shahadatain. To a point that came, he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, he says, the angels have come and they're giving their greetings to you. Of course, Imam Ridha alayhi salatu, he sees the angels. And at that moment, I've worked some cases in hospice, and if you pay attention, most of those individuals who are close to death, the doors of the unseen become open for them. So this individual, he says, the angels, they come, they've given their salams to you. He says, and they're standing. They're waiting for your permission to sit. The Imam Ridha alayhi salatu gave them permission. Then this individual, he closed his eyes. And he says that, I see Rasulullah. He says, I see the Imma Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. And then right before his passing, he says, Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. Assalamu alayka. هكذا شخصك ماثل لي مع أشخاص محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. He says, I see my Imams. He was comforted, again, by renewing his iman in Allah and in Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhi wasallam. The last point I will make, if this is the moment where Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he is going from Medina to Khurasan, it is a separation, it is a parting. Of course, one of the most sad moments for the Ahlul Bayt, they said that the Ahlul Bayt, they were crying because they said that whenever anyone made hijrah, anyone from the Imams, they made hijrah from Medina, they never returned to Medina. Imam Hussein made that hijrah, he did not return. Imam Ridha, also he made that hijrah, he did not return. Imam Jawad, he made that hijrah, he did not return. But Imam Ridha also, he gives us a moment of comfort as well. He tells one of his companions, Ibn Shabib, Rayan ibn Shabib, he says, Ya ibn Shabib, إن كنت باكيا لشيء فبكي للحسين ابن علي ابن أبي طالب. He says, O Shabib, O son of Shabib. He said, if you cry for anything in this world, then cry for Hussein ibn Ali. Cry for Imam al-Hussein. فإنه ذبح كما يذبح كبش. He says that why? Because Imam Hussein, he was slaughtered, he was martyred like they slaughter the sheep. But Imam Ridha, he's being kind in this moment, because at least when they slaughter the sheep, what did they do? They give the sheep water before they slaughter it, according to the Sirat and Sunnat of Rasulullah. But Imam Hussein in Karbala, that he was slaughtered, he was martyred, that there was no water for Imam Hussein, for those who were martyred along with Imam Hussein. He tells Hashabib, Ya ibn Shabib, in sarraka an yakuna laka min al-thawab mithlu ma liman استشهد مع الحسين فقل متى ما ذكرت ذكرته, that he says if you want that reward of those who were martyred along with Imam Hussein, he says whenever you remember Imam Hussein, say these words, Ya laytani kuntu ma'ahum fa'afuza ma'ahum fawzan azima. Say, oh Allah, I wish I was with them, I wish I was in Karbala, and I wish I had that great reward in Karbala. But trust me, could you bear that what happened in Karbala, that how the martyrs they fell to the plains one by one? Could you bear that what happened in Karbala, that what Zainab salamullah alayha, what she saw, that when she went upon the hill, the Tanna Zainab, when she saw Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, as if he was laying upon the ground, and the La'een, Shamir al-La'een was sitting upon the chest of Imam Hussein, carrying the head of Imam Hussein. ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذا المجلس الرضوي اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واقضي حوائجنا واشف مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لواء بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Please prepare for Salat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أشهد أن